Hi, my name's Kathryn Kelly. I know a lot of you as Chef Kelly, and I'm coming to you from my home on Amelia Island. The chef instructors in the Culinary Center miss you, our friends, and our guests a lot. And we thought that one of the ways we could stay connected was perhaps by coming to your home from our home kitchens and sharing with you some of the essentials and fundamentals that we're practicing to stay sharp before we join you on the high seas. So we wanted to start today with knives. Probably the most frequently asked questions we get are about knives. This is a chef knife. I'm sharing with you knives that I'm using in my home. So this is my utility knife. This is my workhorse. It's an 8-inch chef knife. It comes at 12 inches, but 8 inches is certainly fine. And what we love about this knife is it has this beautiful curved blade that allows us to do really heavy duty work in the kitchen. And you can see here that the rocking motion of this knife requires me to use my arm. Now this knife is great for things like, I've got some red cabbage here. I'm making some stir fry tonight. So you can see it's a heavy vegetable, it's dense, and it needs that nice sharp knife. The other thing I love about the chef knife is that it's great for the chiffonade, which is one of my favorite knife skills. And I've taken here kale. You can see beautiful black kale. And I've taken the rim out. I'm gonna have a kale salad as well. And that's for lunch tomorrow. And I'm rolling that up, all right, into, it's almost like a cigar. And then I'm taking this knife. So this is a big rolled up ball of kale. And I'm using that rocking motion to do what's called a chiffonade cut and make these beautiful ribbons that I'll massage into a salad. So look at how beautiful that kale is. And it's in these beautiful ribbons that I can make into a salad. So that's the chef knife. 8-inch is certainly fine for you at home. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about how to hold that knife. Make sure that you have the right size for you. The second knife that I have is called a utility knife. And I use a Santoku 5.5-inch. There's also a petite chef knife, which is a 5.5 that I use as well. These are my two utility knives for smaller jobs, not when the vegetables are so heavy. And you can use this. I have a red pepper here, going right through the red pepper, making a nice little julienne. And you can see, instead of the big rocking motion, it's more of a wrist motion here that doesn't require sort of nearly as much effort. It's a lighter weight knife, feels great, and our guests just love this knife. The third knife that I have is the paring knife. Now, if any of you have ever watched the videos of Jacques Pepin peeling an apple, it's absolutely awesome, but humiliating for those of us that have tried it hundreds and hundreds of times and certainly can't do it like the master. But this is a great little knife for small jobs, quick jobs, and also I use it often for peeling those grape tomatoes if all I'm doing is making a salad and I just have one or two things, or I'm mincing a little shallot. So great to have. Those are the three knives that I have in my kitchen, my three musketeers, if you will. I also have, or they're the three main knives I have in my kitchen. I also have a slicing knife that's very thin. I love this knife. I use it with vegetables and with meat. I've been making a lot of cauliflower steaks lately, and they do a real nice job. A boning knife. My grandfather was a butcher, so I do a lot of fabrication of my own meat. I love to have that in my kitchen. And then I have the serrated knife, which is the knife we use with bread. We want to make sure that it's long enough and sturdy enough to get through that real great crusty bread. Now, oftentimes we get asked, how do I know which is the right knife for me? And if we take the classic chef knife, what we teach in our knife skills class is that you find the point on the knife where it's perfectly balanced. So we can see if we hold the knife in different places, we don't get the same balanced effect as if we pinch it right where the fulcrum of the knife is. Now, why is that important? Because when we put our hand on the knife, it oftentimes feels in much better balance and as a much better extension of our arm if we're able to keep the knife at that fulcrum point. So we want to make sure that the knife feels comfortable in our hand when it's at that balance point. Not too long, not too short, not too heavy, not too light. And when we are working with it on our cutting board, that it feels very comfortable for us. So from 5.5 inches to 12 inches with all kinds of different weights, you can find the knife that's right for you. Also, look at the curvature of the blade. And not necessarily, you may like the more Santoku feel. That's a little bit more wrist action as opposed to arm action. There is no right knife. It's what feels good to you. The more expensive the knife is doesn't mean the better that the knife is. It just needs to feel good to you. You need to use it over and over again. I frequently go to people's homes where they have all kinds of knives in cutting blocks and whatever. I have no idea what most of those knives do. Every knife should have a purpose, and the fewer knives you have, the more practice you get, the more repetition you get with those knives, the better your proficiency is. Now, in terms of safety, we always want to make sure that our cutting board is stable. I have a big, heavy wooden board here, but if I had a lighter weight board, I would want to put a wet paper towel or a wet kitchen towel underneath so that it couldn't jiggle around. So you always want to make sure that your cutting board is super safe. Now, we get asked frequently about sharpening knives and honing knives. Probably one of the most misunderstood concepts in the knife skills arena is about honing versus sharpening. This is a honing steel. When you take a knife and use it 3-4 times, if you looked under a knife microscope at the edge, it would look like shark's teeth going in every different direction. And what you do with a honing instrument is we bring those rough edges, okay, into alignment. I call it, many chefs call it truing up of the knife. And while it feels sharper, we actually haven't sharpened the knife. What we've done is reduce the drag, so when you're cutting a tomato, for example, instead of it feeling draggy, it feels real smooth. So it's important to hone pretty much every time you use your knife. So I just keep my honing stick right here on my cutting board. Sharpening, however, takes some of the blade away so that we can have a sharper cutting edge. I sharpen my knives once, maybe twice a year, and I use a little instrument made by Zwilling, who we use this in the culinary centers. It has been designed so that it's at a 20% angle. There is a Japanese side to it as well, but a 20% angle for my Western knives. And all I simply do is take my knife and drag it. You can hear. I drag it through those pre-set edges, so it takes a little bit of the edge off, and then I have a coarse setting and a fine setting. I always know that my knife is sharp. You hear that? That's a sharp knife. Want to make sure I always keep my knife clean, but you want that sharp edge. I often tell people that the other way, and probably the preferred way, is to have a professional sharpen your knives and make as part of your cruise packing list or your preparation list that you're going to take your knives to get them professionally sharpened, and then when you get back from your wonderful Oceania cruise, your knives will be sharpened and waiting for you. And hopefully you've been able to take some classes or see some cooking demonstrations, or eat some fabulous food on your cruise, so that you're just right ready to get back to your kitchen. So I'd like to thank you for joining me. And in true Oceania spirit, Jacques Pepin spirit, we never do much without wine, but we've used our knives. So I'll pour a little bit of wine. say I can't wait to see you on the high seas. I hope you'll join us for the rest of the Essential series with our great chef instructors. And I wish you safe, health, great food, great kitchens, and we can't wait to see you back.